The following was recorded during the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strike. Without the hard work of the laborers and actors fighting for their rights, the stories we love would not exist and these conversations would not be possible. For more information on how to aid the strikers, go to the link in the description down below.
The Nerd Academy podcast is released weekly at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, available on our website at www.thenerdacademypodcast.com and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also help support the show by going to patreon.com/The Nerd Academy podcast, where every donation allows us to bring you more exciting content every week.
Hello. Welcome to the Nerd Academy podcast. Don't worry about the cookie jar. It's not possessed. We promise. Now, listen, guys. It's come up before. Five Nights at Freddy's is my guilty pleasure. And I have avoided talking about it in any substantive detail for the most part, to spare my online reputation and the brain cells of those I hold dear. All of that is off the table. A live action movie came out, and it's about to be all y'all's fucking problem. A little bit of housekeeping up top. First of all, thank everybody for the great reception on the Spider-Man 2 discussion we had with Mitch from Comic Book Cast last week. It was a great episode. Thank you guys for tuning into it. There's going to be another teen app out this week. It's going to be me. It's going to be a friend of the show, Alden Diaz of Octo Radio and Casterly Talk. We're going to be talking about Loki. We're going to be maybe talking about Invincible. Depends upon I get to it. Going to try to get caught up on Gen V so I can do a review of the season with Mitch as well. Because he's the only other person I know who's watching Gen V. It's a fucking crime. The Boys is great. You're all wrong if you don't like it. Versus series, we have those episodes we got to get caught up on. We weren't able to record them this week. Scheduling got away from me. That one's on me fully. That's not on Spencer. That was just fully me being busy in chaotic schedules and shit. So hopefully some of those will be coming out next week. Have an episode, like I said, we're going to be talking about Loki. We're going to be talking about that doozy of a Variety article that came out yesterday at time of record. And yeah, without any further ado, I'm not talking about Five Nights at Freddy's alone. I am joined by dear friend of the show, Boop of the Nerd Herder podcast.
Five Nights at Freddy's. That's where I want to be. Five Nights at Freddy's.
It doesn't get old.
Never, ever.
It never does. I love that man so much.
I was today years old. Oh, also for anybody who's new around here, Boop, it's been a minute since you've been on the show.
Hi.
They, them pronouns. So get it right. If you say anything in the comments, get it right. I just noticed that it wasn't on screen, so wanted to call attention to it. And for anybody listening, I just wanted to make sure that was on the record, so people know. I was today years old when I went onto TikTok to harvest that clip, that apparently the Living Tombstone, the gamer core musicians whose song is in the credits, which we'll talk about the end. We'll talk about the credits. We'll talk about future speculation. That'll be a conversation on its own later in the show. I found out that apparently the Living Tombstone re-recorded their iconic first Five Nights at Freddy's song after Jack Black did that little run and changed the vocals on it.
Of course they did.
They were like, no, like Jack Black said, and he goes, Five Nights at Freddy's, and it and that little glissando, they went in and added it because it used to just be like Five Nights at Freddy's. It was just like it did not do that fun little dip there. So they went in and added that, and I think that's deeply fucking funny.
It's hilarious.
But yeah, we're gonna talk about this. We're gonna talk about this franchise, this fandom, the lore, the movie.
We're gonna do our best. Is
all
what we're
of
gonna
that.
do.
But you know what? A litany of child murders is bloody business.
Good God.
And you know what else is bloody, Boop?
If you cut an ad right now, I'm going to crawl across the screen
The
and
product
kick you in
and
the
service
face.
that sponsors this show, Sunday's Bloody Mary Mix.
You
the only Bloody
can't
Mary
tie
mix
child murder
that can
into liquor.
That can stop a rash of child homicides and abductions and potential possessions. Oh wait, hold up.
He's disappointed in you.
He should be.
Look at this face.
Listen, I have made it a point. I have said before that the people I look up to in terms of like podcasters and like this medium of entertainment are mostly people who cover things infinitesimally more important than cape shit and space wizards. However, if I'm gonna be anything like Robert Evans, I'm just gonna cut absurd ad pivots. And if Travis were here, he'd be proud of that one. But
he shouldn't be.
I know he shouldn't be, but hey, it's better than saying that everything's sponsored by Raytheon for fun. It could be worse, It could be, Lockheed Martin, trusted child killer. Anyway, brought the mood down a little bit. My bad. Sunday's Bloody Mary. You guys know the drill. Sunday's Bloody Mary has the most badass Bloody Mary accoutrement in the multiverse with their 3-time award-winning spicy Caesar mix and their mild and traditional mixes. If the spice isn't for you, they also have their also award-winning spicy dilly beans, okra, and asparagus. If you want to get your freak on and garnish that bad boy, and you can salt that rim if you're nasty. If you guys want to get your hands on this former bartender's only Bloody Mary mix I will ever touch, ever use, I either make it from scratch or I use Sunday's Bloody Mary, and those are the only 2 options for me. Go to the link down below, use that link, and then use our code TNAP, TNAP at checkout, and get 10% off your order and help out your favorite nerds while you do it. I'm counting on the fact that the people at Sunday's Bloody Mary don't watch my show.
You should. Good Lord. Hey, you know what can really lubricate those spring locks, Jarod? Some Sunday's Bloody Mary mix.
Fucking Bloody Mary mix?
Yes.
Oh man, I am a Bloody Mary monger first and a movie critic second.
You're a shill, is what you are.
I am a shill. Why are you not on the show more often?
Because you don't invite me as much.
You're right. You're right. That's fair. Normally you and John are typically busy, and I wanted to give you guys a wide berth when Nerd Herder went on hiatus. But there's no other person I can have a conversation with you.
Of course not.
I wanted to let you enjoy your retirement in peace. I say retirement. You're coming back eventually.
No, I'm smoking a fake cigarette and being like, I'm getting too old for this shit. I'm getting too old to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's. And yet.
But no, the Five Nights at Freddy's movie is here. This is it is surreal. Like I had a moment walking in to my AMC that I typically go to where yes, I want to make one thing abundantly clear. I could have watched this shit at home. I used my weekly A-list tickets and money and gas and my loving girlfriend's time and patience.
So loving.
So that I could mark out over this bullshit. But no, like walking in, I had this moment that I only ever had. This is gonna get clipped, and I deserve it. I had a moment going into this movie that I have only ever had with fucking Marvel movies, where there's this moment, there's this surreal moment of like, holy shit, I can't believe this is real. I can't believe this is actually happening. The movie was in development hell. It's been shopped around multiple studios. Originally, it was supposed to be a WB joint. Then it died. Then it was at Blumhouse, and then Blumhouse got into bed with Universal for this one. And now it's out. And by all accounts, this movie should not exist. And there's one thing I want to say up top, and I normally hate when people say this kind of thing. I remember back when Thor: Love and Thunder and people who are allergic to fun were talking about why they hated that movie.
Trey Mitchell.
Trey Mitchell. That there was this sense of like, well, don't expect it to be good. It's supposed to be funny. And I A, hate that mentality. B, do not think it applies to Thor: Love and Thunder. And C, I just think it's a cop out to avoid having like an actual conversation and dissecting art. All of that to say, I don't think that this is necessarily a great movie.
God, no.
Like, I want to say that up top because you and I are gonna gush,
obviously,
and I just the experience I had with Five Nights at Freddy's is what I think a lot of people who are way more cynical about the modern era of Star Wars say that Star Wars fans enjoy about Star Wars. Like, it's so self-referential, and it's like you're not here for the story, you're here for pretty colors and just the idea of seeing things. And I don't want to say that that's all this movie has to offer, because it's not. Like, there are some really interesting ideas, and is it reinventing the horror wheel? No, not at all, but it's playing with a lot of fun tropes and concepts. But at the end of the day, functionally, this movie's kind of busted. I was stunned with how consigned to childishness the evil aunt plotline was.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, and again, I don't want to call Five Nights at Freddy's, even as a fandom or a franchise or whatever, like high concept necessarily.
God, no, it's Five Nights at Freddy's.
No, but like, the supernatural element of this franchise is really weird and heady and complicated. And part of that is because the franchise is intentionally muddy in terms of details. And again, that's something we'll get into talking about the plot. But like, I was taken aback by how Disney Channel a lot of the elements with the aunt stuff was. Like, I was talking about it with my girlfriend, who, again, it's like every week there's like something else that happens, and I'm like, God bless her. If it's not her having to watch episode 5 of Ahsoka with me, which, like, I don't think anybody deserves to have to watch me watch that happen. Or, her putting up with the fucking bender I went on to beat Spider-Man in a weekend. We were having a conversation, and again, God bless her for like engaging with this fucking movie, like enough to have a conversation about plot and characterization and theme.
Oh yeah.
That, like, the aunt is so comically, cartoonishly evil.
Oh, absolutely. And the lawyer as well.
And
just super Disney Channel.
Yeah. And we were having a conversation, and she brought up a great point where, like, you could have her still be this like hateful, venomous bitch, and it not be this weird power play with the kid. Like, there's a very obvious route of, your mom died. I, on some level, blame you for Garrett's abduction. and the last like vestige of your mother's legacy to me is your sister. And because I have this like unresolved trauma, which is already like a theme and a current through the movie, because I have this unresolved trauma and I'm taking it out on you, Mike. I want to protect my sister from you because I view you as this like harbinger of loss. And because of that, I do not deem you a worthy caregiver. Instead, the only like inkling of an explanation we get for it is that she is just a villain, you know, like Lex Luthor stole 40 cakes type shit. And maybe it's for the check, but that doesn't check out because like she seems pretty well off. Like at least that's the vibe I get from her, is that like she has this lawyer on such a retainer that she can just kind of like freely abuse this fucking schmuck.
Poor Doug.
I'm like, what's and again, I know I am complaining about the characterization and verisimilitude of a aunt secondary character in the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, but it's just something that I think held the movie back, you know, that I think in retrospect is something that is going that makes the movie a lot easier to kind of like turn your nose up at, you know, that like it's already schlocky and corny and like campy in a way that like is charming but internally inconsistent and weird. Gotcha. That like, and you already have so much going against this movie that bizarre choice of her being like the fucking evil queen from Snow White is a mind-boggling choice. And not only that, they just glide past the fact that Golden Freddy murders that bitch. Like, yeah. Now, because at first, because whenever they're not like making more hay about it, I'm like, well, maybe he just domed her and called it a day. Like maybe she's out cold. Maybe Auntie like evil lady like has some like bananas CTE now, and and that's why we're just gonna glide past it. But like everything I've seen, every person I've seen talk about this movie just kind of takes for granted that she's dead. And I'm like, and I'm over here trying to give the movie the benefit of the doubt that like surely they're not just gonna gloss over this chick being murdered in Mike's house. Like, yeah. And I think that's the other reason why I think it's such an insane bananas decision is that she's murdered in the house, and like Mike has all the motive to kill her. And what was the little sister's name again?
Abby.
Thank you. You have every motive to kill her because she's threatening to take Abby, and this guy has clearly demonstrated that he does not have a great like mental health streak in him. Like all of the building blocks to build a case against this guy are there. And sorry, you're gonna think this is crazy. So, you know that joint down the road, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria? So there's a bunch of fucking ghosts and the robots, right?
Right.
And
because
then one
in the Goosebumps universe,
yeah. Like I'm just imagining Mike in an interrogation room, and I'm imagining John Munch from SVU and Homicide, because I think that's his best chance. Because Munch is the only fucker crazy enough to believe him, and he's having this moment. Hey, so this is fucking ghosts, fucking robots, fucking Freddy's, and then one of them. It was actually the golden one that is arguably not even real. That arguably does not even have a physical form. He came in, abducted Abby, and murdered my crazy aunt, who had on the record filed papers to take this child away from me.
That tracks. You know, she was missing her entire frontal lobe, so
yeah,
spade to spade.
Was that the bite of 2000? So I would do want to say, whenever Max got Darth Mauled
by
Freddy, I was like, I didn't do it. I stopped myself, and I was so glad. There was one person behind me who, like, quietly enough for the people she was with to hear, went, "Was that the bite of 87?"
Oh no, me and John screamed at the TV.
So yeah, the aunt stuff was bizarre. I just, it almost feels like the way that people criticize the Transformers movies of, like, you don't need a person.
Yes.
Mark Wahlberg, Shia LaBeouf, like, none of them need to be there. You can probably tell a story just with the fucking robots.
They've done it so many times before, like Beast Wars.
Yeah, and I feel like either you let her be a person, or you just have Mike be strapped and be like, I got to provide for this kid.
Mm-hmm.
And the only job opportunity is this horse shit at this abandoned pizzeria. Fuck it. I think that's my biggest criticism, is that, like, that is the thing that just, like, kind of glares at me, because I think if you smooth over the aunt stuff, again, either by virtue of having her be a person or eliminated from the narrative altogether, you have a functioning story, or a story that does not, like, feel as asinine and accidentally schlocky as it did.
Yeah,
that's
just
me,
that
though. That's just me, though. If people loved On to whatever the fuck, go off. My condolences that your fave got fucking greased by Golden Freddy.
Properly and truly greased. Like, I understand that completely, and I feel like a lot of the complaints that were made about this movie were also made about the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark movie, which came out a couple years ago. I don't know, but, like, I think the thing that a lot of people forget is that this is entry-level horror. It's horror made with kids in mind.
I have seen the term gateway horror bandied about a lot on Twitter, and I think that is very important as well.
Oh yeah, we weren't all, freaks in the early 2000s that were showed it by an older brother. Like, I do like the idea that we have more age appropriate horror being made now, but, like, at the end of the day, man, it's just a fucking movie.
Yeah, for sure. And, like, I'll say this much, here's my FNAF backstory.
Please do. I want to hear this.
A lot of people got into the Game Theorists, Matt Pat, all that stuff because of Five Nights at Freddy's. I discovered game theory during the beginning of FNAF doing permanent psychological damage to Matt Patrick. And I was there. I was watching, like, the Smash Bros videos. I was watching all the videos. It was like, oh, like, Mario's a fucking sociopath. But I was like 17, 18. I'm like, oh, these are fun. These are funny. I'm watching them while I clean the kitchen and shit. And the algorithm kept telling me, watch these Five Nights at Freddy's videos. And I was like, I have no interest in this. The only exposure I've ever had to Five Nights at Freddy's are the weirdest motherfuckers I know at school. Are the most bizarre, unkempt, horrifying people I know. And unkempt was a bridge too far. They were well groomed.
They were teenagers.
Psychologically unkempt, I should say. And I had no. I was like, this is fucking dumb. And then I ran out of videos. And I was like, you know what? You win, algorithm. You win. Fine. I'll watch this. And I have always loved supernatural mystery stories. I've always loved stories that like there is a grander like conspiracy at play for the viewer, for the reader to like get to have this aha moment. It's one of the reasons why, you know, or for example, like even though I've played these games 1,000 times and I know the story front and back, anytime I see on TikTok these videos that have like creepy music and they're like this is not about FNAF. This is even funnier actually. And it's these videos that are like hidden details in the Batman Arkham games. And my hair stands up every time when you go back and you realize that in Arkham Asylum, in one of the rooms, there are the blueprints for Arkham City. And there are you can see like there are things in motion. This story cannot be stopped. And then when you get to Arkham City, when you explore, you go to those shipyards and you find the boat with all the crates of fear toxin and Scarecrow's old mask. And when you revisit Arkham Asylum, you realize retroactively you went through the room that you find out Joker used underneath Arkham to maim, torture, and kill Jason Todd. And there has always been something so just unsettlingly fascinating about stuff like that to me. There is, you know, I've said before, I love the Fear Street trilogy because like because again, by the time that shit's over, you have this like aha, like big picture view of the whole thing that like, again, it's this grand, confusing, supernatural conspiracy. I find it all deeply fascinating. It's another reason why I've recently started watching the Saw movies with Taylor. And like, you know, we just finished 5 last night. And every time I like I get giddy at the end of every movie when that theme music kicks in and you get the boom 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 boom. Here's what has been fucking happening in front of you. I like there's just something that makes my brain buzz about that specific thing. And the bizarre beauty of Five Nights at Freddy's is that it is constructed in such a way that it's the community exists in this weird place of like it's equal parts ARG and just video game almost. They're like, granted, there is no real world element other than we're all trying to piece together the mystery. And you know, because I got into those, I started watching those videos. I was like, shit, this is deeply fucking fascinating and, you know, macabre in this very fascinating way. And then like 8 years later, I'm in my mid-20s and got to celebrate my 25th birthday because Matt Pat dropped the third part of the Ultimate Timeline on my birthday. I'm like,
just for you,
just for me. I was like, happy birthday, happy birthday. He's like, happy birthday to this 2-bit YouTuber he doesn't know if fucking exists. You know, here's the part of the timeline that you're the least familiar with on a platter. Here you go. And I think that the thing that impressed me the most about this movie is that I think it handles the nature of adapting this kind of franchise remarkably well.
Oh, absolutely. It's the most coherent story we've gotten in the entire series.
Yeah. You know, and for a franchise that like had that the minutia is so unbearably important at every step of the way.
Absolutely.
That, you know, you can have a knockdown drag out debate about who the first kill is, when the first kill happens, like the chronology of how these children die, what specific ghosts are haunting which animatronics, down to the fact that it's just widely accepted that there's 2 fucking ghosts in one of them.
Yep. And I think we're going to get a confirmation of that in the next movie.
Well, hey, we'll see. I'm very excited to see how all of that shakes out. I was impressed by the fact that this movie managed to condense enough to have a coherent narrative while also not trying to, swing for the fences. And so swing for the fences in a way of like, we're going to try to make Five Nights at Freddy's the movie definitively. This is it. And we have put every single ounce of lore into one narrative.
Yeah, including the short story books, which nobody read except for me and Matt Pat.
Except for you and Matt Pat, which I know is a sticking point you want to get into. But like, and I do think that like, this movie, it's incredibly accessible.
Absolutely.
It is incredibly accessible to normal fucking people. While like being jam packed for like the lifers, like again, stuff we talked about a little bit right before we started, like that Matt Pat cameo was fantastic.
Spectacular.
Was it a little indulgent at the end, but hey, that's just a theory. I know you said your lovely partner, he stormed out of the fucking room.
Yeah. As soon as that happened, he got up and left.
But I saw a lot of people saying that like this movie is incoherent unless you have the Five Nights at Freddy's brain rot. I don't think that's accurate.
No.
I think there's a
if
level
you pay attention to the movie, you get it.
Yeah. I think that they make a lot of interesting decisions, the fact that it looks like they're foregoing the whole idea that Mike Schmidt is his son. And again, but those are elements that you can only really get away with in the games because there's this level of like first person anonymity that you can't have in the movie, and again, like, do I think the whole Garrett is one of the first kills? I think I think they're asking a lot of the audience there just because like it's kind of implied his family was on vacation in Nebraska. Or that he and Afton happened to live in Nebraska at the same time. Afton decided, what if I kill a fucking kid?
May as well. He's right there.
Yeah, like there's some weird shit there, but I do love that there is this healthy balance of this is a movie for normal people and it needs to be accessible while also leading super into just some like things I can only describe as esoteric internet brain rot. Like, I cackled every time I saw that fucking book.
You ain't kidding.
The fact that, and again, for any normal people who are watching or still watching inexplicably,
why are you watching this?
Go buy some Bloody Mary mix. There was after the fourth game came out, and a lot of that game was predicated on just the idea of nightmares. A very real conversation about what is actually happening versus what could potentially be a nightmare or a dream or a hallucination of some sort. And what was referred to as dream theory became a sticking point and a hotly debated topic that after this franchise has gone through, at that point, 4 games and this just convoluted web of incoherent bullshit, that the ultimate cop-out of it was all a dream, it was all this kid who was terrified, having nightmares, and these are the like fever dreams of a child on their deathbed because of their asshole big brother and a horrible prank gone wrong.
Yeah.
That was a big sticking point that people were like angry about. That there had been so much investment for it to all, be in a fucking snow globe,
Yeah.
That, like, in and of itself, to a normal person, it's a plot device talking about the weird nature of dreams and consciousness, which I think is handled great. I think it was very inventive. I love the way that like this weird idea of imagination and dreams and how like how those things are so important to the psyche of a child ends up being the doorway to communing with these dead children who are haunting the pizzeria. Like that that was really cool. That was really clever. It was heady. It stems from a wink and a nod to the fans.
Yep.
Who, like, I cannot be the only one who had a visceral reaction to the first thing we see in the fucking movie proper being 6 a.m. Dream Theory.
Yep. I think that's as close to a confirmation of any kind of lore or canon that we're ever going to get from Scott, personally. Like, because a lot of that stuff also came up in the second book in the series, The Silver Eyes, The Twisted Ones, which also feature a lot of very grody looking animatronics and a lot of how am I going to explain this without like having to explain a whole trilogy of books at one time?
Do it.
Okay.
We have unlimited time as far as I'm concerned.
So, you know what? I read The Silver Eyes as soon as it came out, which is a trilogy of books that were written by Scott Cawthon, the creator of the Five Nights. He used Ghost Rider, and that's fine. Everybody does it. James Patterson does it all the time. I don't know why it's such a big deal for, Scott Cawthon. Yeah, he wrote it in conjunction with another author. Boy, howdy, do they read like a book. Like, it's, imagine Goosebumps, but like a step down. You know what? Interesting concepts in those books. I really enjoyed myself for the lore, not necessarily for the book.
Yeah.
But
I mean, Scott Cawthon, I think one could make an argument. I'm sorry to cut you off.
You're good.
Think Scott Cawthon, and I think it's part of why Five Nights at Freddy's is so successful, is that he's good with plot and he's good with ideas. It is the actual mechanics of telling a story where, like, you run into issues. Like, it's why, this is a prequel friendly channel. It's why some of those movies are kind of incoherent at times. And but Scott played to his strength there, where it's like you're getting this surreal, almost dreamlike snapshot of individual moments presented in this very abstract way, where we get to fill in the gaps as the players, as the fans, where he never had to like put pen to paper and write out a full story. He was able to put plot points down like bullet points, because we were going to assemble a timeline like it's fucking true crime.
Yeah, I don't think he had any idea what he was doing with the story at all, in at least the first two games. Like, I think he had just spaghetti throwing at the wall and everything was sticking, and he was like, what am I going to do with all this spaghetti? Like, it's just a thing that happens sometimes with your internet horror. But yeah, in the first book, The Silver Eyes, the main character is Charlie, who is the daughter of Henry, who is the business partner and co-creator of Fazbear Entertainment.
Yeah.
It turns out that when Charlie is a child, she has memories of sitting in a closet with her brother, her twin brother, I can't remember his name, who, it gets worse, trust me.
No, I know. I'm just waiting to see if you're going to bring up.
Oh, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
So William Afton breaks in, steals Charlie's brother, and runs away, kills him, does whatever. And so the first plot of the first book is Charlie going back to the original pizzeria. That's not the Fredbear Family Diner, because we need so many different restaurants. It's not, it's not enough. We need, let's see if I can remember off the top of my head, Fredbear's, and then there's
Fredbear's is just for the lovely people at home. Fredbear's Family Diner is like the beginning, the proto restaurant run solely by William Afton. There's a competing restaurant that Henry Emily works for, and he's this like savant mechanical robotics guy. They eventually team up to then create Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, where Afton's creative mind and the cutting edge robotics technology of Henry Emily come together to create this magnum opus of Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. I need to seek professional help.
We do.
This
We're
is
not
the
even in the
first
Pepe
time
Sylvia yet.
this is the first time I've like said this shit out loud in a long time. Oh man.
Yeah. It's great, isn't it? It feels freeing. It feels like you're finally like getting something off your chest and you can finally admit, hey, I like this stuff. Does it make sense? Absolutely not. But we're doing our best. Yeah, where was I?
First
Charlie's
location that
brother.
isn't Fredbear, yeah.
Yeah, he gets kidnapped. They go to the original Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria, where supposedly the first game takes place. William Afton is already there, working as a security guard, and then he purple guys. You know, like in the games, he puts on the spring lock suit, gets spring locked, and that's pretty much the end of the first book. At the second book, The Twisted Ones, turns out that there was a whole network of workshops underneath Charlie's house where William Afton was building new animatronics, and the whole thing behind them.
Just think about the factory on Geonosis and Attack of the Clones.
Exactly. That is 100% it. He builds the twisted animatronics, and he puts this sound chip in their chests that distorts brain waves and makes them look super freaking like twisted and spooky. And if you've played the games, imagine Ennard.
Yeah.
Imagine the toy animatronics too, with all of the wires underneath their exoskeletons. And they kidnap Charlie. She's buried underground in the stomach of Twisted Freddy for like a day and a half, and she doesn't die, which is important. But turns out that William Afton's spirit is still in the Springlock suit. And I'm yada-yada-yadaing a lot of this. It's warranted. It is absolutely warranted. So all that happens. And then Charlie gets back into the stomach of Twisted Freddy and is spring-locked to death. And so all of her friends are super sad. They go to the diner, and who walks in but Charlie? Turns out she was an animatronic the entire time.
Maybe I'll walk out of here tomorrow and you never see me again. That's really what I want to do.
And that's the plot of the first two books, and the third book is essentially how that happened.
So, all of that to say, a surprising amount of the movie borrows elements from the books. Because again, the game lore, the game canon, because much like Star Wars Legends, there are tiers of canon with a lot of this stuff. Because that's always good to have. Especially when your narrative is a giant fucking puzzle. Within the lore of the games, I'm not going to yada 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 a lot of this. The way this shakes out is that Afton feels this weird rivalry with Henry Emily, who some people think was seen in the movie during the
I hate
training
that last
tape.
name so much.
I know.
It's awful.
But that he has this weird relationship with Henry where he's like, we're like, you know, you helped save my business by us teaming up, and you're helping bring so much of my vision to life, but like it's you bringing it to life, it's you doing this, and I feel spurned by you. Now while this is happening, his eldest son Michael is kind of bullying the youngest child, who has this like kind of weird fear of the animatronics. He's just fucking freaked out by them. And during what is presumably this kid's birthday, the older brother and a bunch of his friends, in an attempt to fuck with this kid, like kind of like hold him up in front of like the golden Freddy animatronic, and he's like, "Oh, are you scared? He's gonna eat you!" And then it kind of chomps down and kills this young child. This happens, and it sends Afton on a bit of a tailspin. He's lost his son. He views Henry Emily as someone who as this kind of usurper. He blames Henry because it's like, hey, it's your machines that failed and killed my fucking kid.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this is in the game lore. Afton, the character played by Matthew Lillard, snaps and kills Henry's daughter, Charlie. And her spirit goes on to haunt the puppet, the marionette, whatever you want to call it. They're both used interchangeably. I use them interchangeably. Now we don't see that in the movie directly. Credits. We'll get there. So that's like how this spree begins. And after that, as time goes on, Afton starts to realize, oh, like spirits are possessing these animatronics and they're becoming hostile towards like the adults in the room because, you know, it's a kid. They don't fully understand what's happening. They're angry and they're lashing out.
Yes.
Now, this is where I really think what the movie did was a bold decision that I like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That they really lean into the predatory nature of William Afton as a villain. And in doing so, create a dynamic where he has effectively groomed an army of unkillable undead robots whom he can like have a passive income of bloodlust with.
Yes.
And I love the idea that the animatronics and the spirits are corrupted by the dark, vengeful nature of Afton.
Yeah.
And it's a fascinating idea. And I love the way that they characterize and conceptualize this whole idea of like the drawings and the pictures and the way that it leans into this whole idea of like this childlike innocence being reclaimed and used as a method of liberation for these spirits, of you know, showing them the truth. And the way that they turn on Afton, which happens again down the line in the game lore, Afton is trying to harvest you know, what he starts to call remnant. There is a magic the force. It's the FNAF force.
Yes.
So
you kill dead kids, you put them in animatronics.
And
ooze.
It creates an ooze, and it's like this, and it kind of enchants the metal, essentially.
Exactly.
As he realizes there's this weird phenomena where the metal of these animatronics is altered by the presence of the supernatural, of the paranormal. And God,
I know
I'm giving myself a fucking aneurysm the more I talk about this. But
it sounds made
that,
up.
It sounds so fake, and it is, but like it sounds like we're making it up as we go. Bringing that back to the movie,
yes.
I love that because again, and I think again, it's a weird thing with the games is that the further and further you get into the games, and the more that Scott will take, you know, things for granted and be okay. You guys figured out this chunk, so we are just going to plainly state certain things. By the time the fandom has like planted a flag, we get this thing. It's kind of taken as an assumption, and he acknowledges it.
Yeah.
One of the things that was always this weird, you know, ludonarrative dissonance. This like weird ludonarrative dissonance at play where we know now as the player, as the fan, the animatronics are not evil. They are not malignant. These are the victims of a vicious murder. They are victims of a predator.
Mm-hmm.
But they are still our adversary. So how do you square that? Now, later on down the road, I'm not going to get into the details of it. They do introduce objectively like evil, tainted, twisted, you know, haunted animatronics, like Circus Baby, like obviously Afton in the Springtrap suit, you know, Ennard, stuff like that. where it's like these are like malignant spirits who have like who have, for lack of a better term, like chosen the dark side. Like these are not the victims who we kind of have to like barter with to not kill us and just navigate while we try to crack the case. I love the idea that this story puts the onus on Afton for the aggression and violence of the animatronics.
Absolutely.
And that in some way they are trying to please him with these vicious acts of violence.
Exactly, because they're kids.
Because they're kids. They don't understand. And I do love that there's a dreamlike quality to that choice. That
Absolutely.
like, you know, like in a dream, you know, like your mind fills in the gaps. Why am I here? Doesn't fucking matter. We'll get there eventually. That these kids are almost in this weird in-between state of consciousness that like they don't understand the how or the why. All they understand is like, no, he wants us to do this. And I do think on some subconscious level, they understand that they're being had because the kid that so here's a question I have that I sincerely just, again, in talking about it with my girlfriend, we confused ourselves.
Yeah.
The ringleader kid, the ringleader ghost, the one that really is the only one with real dialogue. Is that Freddy or Golden Freddy? Like
I am
the pilot
99%
ghost?
Sure. I'm pretty sure he's Golden Freddy.
That's what I thought too. Because he also gets the Jigsaw game over at the end.
Yes, he does.
Which I thought was, again, I am so glad I got into Saw when I did.
Yes.
That when they have that moment of like him writhing with the fucking, you know, clawing into him, that the kid gets to like close the door. And because because it's based off a fucking video game, that when you lose and the animatronics get you, it says game over while you're locked in a supply closet. That I was like, it would have been funny if the kids said it, but then it just would have been too Jigsaw.
Jarod,
down to the big, like, it's the fact that it's a giant door that it takes an effort to grab onto and close. That like as the kid was closing it, I like under my breath into my girlfriend's ear went, game over. That's fucking great.
In the year of our Lord and Savior, Nicolas Cage, 2023, we had Springtrap do the fucking ghost face knife clean in a Five Nights at Freddy's movie.
That shit was hard, though.
It was so good. I've seen thirst edits.
I think
with that at the...
I'm not a religious person, but y'all need to find God.
I've seen so much, man.
Stop texting. Find God.
I'm gonna start sending them to you.
Of course you are. One of the funniest things Boop has ever sent me in my life was an edit set to a Five Nights at Freddy's fan song from the perspective of the kind of prophetic about the movie's plot, where it was very like, you know, I think we're supposed to follow this guy, but I'm 99% sure he killed us. Is kind of like the premise of the song. But the edit was set to Emperor Palpatine.
Yep.
And you and I both were like, this is offensively fucking good. This has no right to go this fucking hard. How dare you? But yeah, and I did really love that idea that it is the childlike innocence. And again, there's a lot of like set up, payoff, set up, payoff, set up, payoff, which yes, is really simplistic. But the way that a lot of this, like, you know, like pictures are like the best way for a child to communicate. And, you know, again, I do love the idea that like there's certain supernatural elements that are kind of taken for granted that like, oh yeah, Abby's a fucking medium.
Yeah. Because all children can talk to ghosts.
You know like I sincerely love that was just a given. That there just came a point where like, you know, maybe she's connected to them because of Garrett, and that through her and her connection to Garrett and the connection of Garrett to sharing victimhood with these children, that there's some weird metaphysical supernatural, like you're our door to the real world and the universe has chosen you to help us get to where we need to be.
Yeah.
I truly think that I loved that. It soars for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think the idea of the animatronics lashing out, which again is something that happens in the games, where again it's framed differently. Like William Afton, and I can go either way on this. I like the idea of the animatronics and their haunting and their violent tendencies being a byproduct of them being these like thralls of Afton. I equally like in the games is that whenever he returns to this location after it's since been closed and he's trying to harvest the magical metals, that when the ghosts just straight up appear to him because he's dismantled the suits or the animatronics, is that in a last ditch attempt to terrify them and take the power back, he gets into the suit. He gets back into the Spring Bonnie suit, and that's what kills him the first time. And that was a fun conversation I had with Taylor, where I was like, where she brought up like that she is preemptively already tired of this motherfucker not dying, and she made the mistake of asking me how many times has William Afton died in the games, and I had to, with a straight face, look at her and say the words, "How do you want to define die?" Because that's a sincere question.
Yeah, that is okay. So
because are we going to say that William Afton dies inside of the Spring Bonnie suit and then comes back to life as Springtrap? And then how many times are we going to say he dies? Because like Fazbear Fright burns down.
Exactly.
And he's considered dead, but he comes back. And that's his big thing, his big line, I always come back. Which again, I just want to say, again, I try to avoid the no actor could ever do blank better than blank. I think it's reductive. I think it holds us back from like art and media evolving. There will eventually be an actor who's better than Heath Ledger to play the Joker or whatever.
Someday, maybe.
And I think you arguably say it already happened with Joaquin, but that's beside the point. All of that to say, I can't think of another actor outside of maybe Willem Dafoe who could have sold Afton's frantic pleading to get them back on his side. Like, that I always come back is so shoehorned in. And you can argue that it would have had a better place while he was actively bleeding out whenever Golden Freddy jigsaws him. Yeah. Like, that if he did it while in that movie, I'll always come back. Like, if like, I think that beat might have narratively worked better there. But I don't think anybody could have. I can't think of anybody other than Willem Dafoe who could have pulled that scene off. And it not just be like turn off the movie inducing. Because it's a lot. It is a lot to take in.
You got to know so much about a game that doesn't really matter. About a canon that has never been confirmed. And probably will never be. With 6 different continuities. At least. To understand. Like, I counted the other night, and I'm pretty damn sure there is 6 different continuities going on. And like, but there is so much in that I always come back. That's just a little for everybody,
Yeah, and it tees up the future of the potential movie canon. And again, like, they condensed, I think, the perfect amount of game stuff into one movie.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that they made the right call with the way that they've adapted, like a little bit of the books, a little bit of the first and third game, a little like a dash of the second game, a little bit of that here and there. But that said, I do want to talk about like the potential future of this movie franchise.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot on the table. Me personally, I really do. So I am of two minds with this one thing. So in the credits at the end, we get the theme of the puppet. Now, to kind of set the table here, we alluded to it earlier. In the games, the spirit that possesses the puppet is Henry Emily's daughter.
Yes.
And she kind of becomes the ringleader. She kind of becomes this because the puppet was like this. Again, there's a lot of like crazy technology that you just kind of need to take for granted in the 80s and 90s. But it was
gifts, give life.
So the puppet, the mechanism was designed after the first batch of murders that couldn't be pinned on Afton. Henry was like, I think it was you, but I can't prove it, so I just got to play along until I can nail you for this. Or no, I have it wrong.
No, it's the missing children's incident happens.
Yeah.
First.
I misspoke and I said earlier that Charlie was the first kill. She was not.
No. What's her name? Susie, I think.
Something like that.
Puppet, the one that went into Chica. Chica was the first.
Yeah. So either way, this kid goes on to haunt the puppet. Yes. And the puppet was designed to kind of be like a roving security device that would be like, oh, children are leaving by themselves or they're leaving with an adult they didn't come in with. It was a surveillance device. The puppet then goes on to kind of usher these children, their spirits, back into the animatronics so that they can live again. And there's the whole thing with like the mini game of give them gifts, give them life, where you playing as the puppet, like go up to each of these spirits and place a Foxy mask and a Chica mask and a Bonnie mask and a Freddy mask. And one of the other mini games you play as the puppet, a voice like the one you hear at the end of the credits spells out, save them. And
do you know what it spells at the end of the credits?
Come find me. And exactly. I love how double meaning that is, because you can't.
It's so good.
Because at first glance, you're like, oh, maybe this is Afton taunting us already from beyond the grave. But it could also be Garrett. And I think that part of me wants them to stick with the puppet being Charlie. I've always loved the idea of Charlie being this almost guardian protector of, you know, she was older than them. She takes responsibility for protecting them. It is her spirit that comes knocking to like kind of aid in the final battle that happens in Pizzeria Simulator.
In the body of Lefty.
Final battle with a big fucking asterisk next to it.
Yeah, because there's
so in the games, if you still give a fuck, William Afton, when he dies and gets sent to hell, he gets tortured too much by one of the kids and gets sent back into the world of the living because he saved his consciousness into an AI that was installed into the Springtrap suit. Fuck you.
That is effectively the best way to describe it.
It's bizarre. I don't care. It's fun. So I do like the idea because I like Charlie as the guardian. I love the idea of like Henry is doing everything he can in the world of the living, and Charlie is meeting Afton in this plane of the beyond to face him. And I love that dynamic. I think it is very fascinating. I love her as this protector and keeper of these children. So on one hand, I want them to do that. On the other, come find me with the puppet theme, with the, you know, C-O-M-E. I think you could also do something interesting. Adapting Garrett to be the puppet.
I think that that's the direction they're going in, honestly. Like, it would make the most sense. Because we have no hint of Charlie. We have Vanessa, which was a complete surprise to me. And I fine, I guess. She was a shitty cop. Like, I told you in my own way. No, you didn't say shit.
Taylor had a out loud reaction to that was clearly involuntary. Like, she said that and she went, "Come on." Yeah. Like, that was her only response. And I was like, yeah, you're right. You're right.
She's definitely an Afton.
Yeah. It could be worse. There are worse members of that family. But true. No, and I'm excited to see where the franchise could go, because I think the puppet setup is really fascinating. I think that there is here's my thing. I do want Henry Emily to be introduced into this narrative.
Absolutely.
And
with a different last name.
If fuck you, I'll keep it. If for no other reason, I don't know who you get to play him. But you need somebody who can do the monologue and
sell the dude who played Billy Loomis in Scream.
That'd be funny. Because so I will set the table here as I pull this up. Mm-hmm. So the plot of Pizzeria Simulator is basically that Mike Schmidt, who again is who is the son of William Afton, he's using a fake surname, to kind of go into these locations and systematically burn them down, free the spirits, and try to undo his father's sordid work. He comes into an alliance with Henry Emily, who is now also working with his daughter. How intentional that is, I think she just kind of comes to be part of the fight. You said that she's lefty. I think the puppet's also in that game, so do with that what you will. It's complicated either way, because I do think you see the puppet in like the burning montage. But either way,
you're right.
He assembles all of the remaining animatronics that are still out there, because most of them are the evil ones. They are Circus Baby, Afton's daughter, who is killed by this animatronic, who then goes on to possess it. But she kind of chooses to like something corrupts her, and corrupts her spirit. So she's like on team Purple Guy, on team William Afton. Same thing with Ennard, who is this like bizarre coagulation of spirits that, again, that weird act of using them all into one consciousness turns it evil. So the whole objective is to like create a new Freddy's to lure them in and put them all in one place. Hold on. God, it goes so hard and it doesn't deserve to.
I was looking for Candy Cadet for that entire, like every panning shot that we got of the pizzeria. I was looking for Candy Cadet.
You're looking for Candy Cadet. I love that. So once you get to the end of this game, or the first ending of this game, this happens as they get them all into one place. They get them subdued, and then they get ready to burn this bitch down and win the day.
You played right into our hands. Did you really think that this job just fell out of the sky for you? No. This was a gift for us. You gathered them all together in one place, just like he asked you to. All of those little souls in one place, just for us. A gift. Now we can do what we were created to do and be complete. I will make you proud, Daddy. Watch, listen, and be full.
So that was from the perspective of Baby, or Circus Baby, Afton's daughter, thinking that then this is like basically Henry Emily playing an Uno reverse card of no, actually, I lured all of you motherfuckers into one place. You fell into my trap, you dumb motherfucker.
Nope.
Action terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name, but I'm afraid you've been misinformed. You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you been called here by the individual you assume, although you have indeed been called. You have all been called here into a labyrinth of sounds and smells, misdirection, and misfortune. A labyrinth with no exit, a maze with no prize. You don't even realize that you are trapped. Your lust for blood has driven you in endless circles, chasing the cries of children in some unseen chamber, always seeming so near, yet somehow out of reach. But you will never find them. None of you will. This is where your story ends. And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be. I am remaining as well. I am nearby. This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should. And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still, and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you, I believe there is peace, and perhaps more, waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, friend. My daughter, if you can hear me, I knew you would return as well. It's in your nature to protect the innocent. I'm sorry that on that day, the day you were shut out and left to die, no one was there to lift you up into their arms, the way you lifted others into yours. And then, what became of you? I should have known you wouldn't be content to disappear. Not my daughter. I couldn't save you then, so let me save you now. It's time to rest, for you, and for those you have carried in your arms. This ends, for all of us, in communication.
So good.
It is so good. Don't keep the devil waiting, old friend, makes my hair stand up every time.
Oh, absolutely.
That maybe I'm greedy. If I get that, that is going to be the second time I get to experience something on the level of Avengers Assemble. And I mean that with my whole chest. I'm not being facetious.
Mm-hmm.
If I get to hear somebody with the acting chops to back that fucking monologue up,
mm-hmm.
put that bow on this shit. God damn.
It has to be someone with monologue and voice.
Yeah.
Markiplier.
Dude, I mean, the age would be a tough sell, but I wouldn't mind it. I would not mind if they were like, okay, Mark, we couldn't kill you off in the first movie as a one-off security guard. So you want to kill this motherfucker?
If it's like
you want to be the one to burn this bitch down?
Because it can't be Matt Pat. He would delight too much in burning that shit to the ground.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it would be deeply fun. I know I made the joke. I don't know if I said it on air or not when I was talking about, like, when it comes to Five Nights at Freddy's, like, I feel like the Pepe Sylvia meme.
Mm-hmm. How can you not be?
I wish that there was a character in this story, and again, I'm sad that this is how again, I love the Matt Pat cameo. I think it was hilarious. I think it was perfect. It was again, and it's one of those things. It's like just like the Dream Theory thing. You did not need to know what was going on there. He did not have an exposition dump. He didn't have a lore dump. And maybe you could still do it with, like, you know, Ness is actually deeply, like, obsessed with the conspiracies around this. That I think he should have been, like, the fucking guy with the pin board.
I hope, beyond hope, that in the next movie he comes back, but his name tag says Sans. That's the only thing I want.
No, that's his last name. His name is Ness Sans. But that's what I want. I want him to be no, you don't understand. Here's everything that we think we know, and everyone calls me crazy for thinking it. I wanted that. I wanted that archetype to be applied to Matt Pat. But yeah. Boop, do you have any last thoughts here before we wrap this up?
My brain was vibrating so violently throughout that entire movie. I loved it so dearly, and I loved every little bit of lore that we got. I loved every like small nod. Every single balloon boy jump scare. I saw John sitting in front of me jump, and it was fantastic.
Same thing happened to Taylor.
Yeah.
I was like,
It was so good.
I just wanted to be like, you can't appreciate this, but this is deeply funny. But yeah, no, I really did like this movie for what it was. You know,
yeah.
again, I said it on Twitter and I'll say it again. I don't think there is a way. I think this is minus the ant stuff, which I think could have been ironed out a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the best possible version of this movie we could have gotten.
Absolutely. And we need to keep in mind that it was not made with critics in mind, which is why it's sitting at like, I think it's a 28 on Rotten Tomatoes. Fuck the tomato website. I do not take anything that they say with any grains of salt. Wash it all out.
We talk about it from time to time on the channel, and I just want to reiterate that like so many people don't understand how Rotten Tomatoes works.
Yeah.
That is not a percent grade. Let's say, just for the sake of argument, let's say Five Nights at Freddy's is sitting at a 30%.
Mm-hmm.
What that means is that 30% of the reviews from verified Rotten Tomatoes critics skew positive.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at a movie that has like a crazy high number,
mm-hmm.
that just means that that movie was given a like a positive review. That does not mean that it does not come with a litany of criticisms, and that doesn't mean that the people that did criticize it did not have positive things to say. That just means that most of the reviews like skewed negative. And again, does this movie have a whole lot of meat on the bones? No. Do I think it's a fascinating reimagination of this story that I think is infinitely more coherent? It forces the narrative to actually like pick a side with a lot of the things that have constantly vexed the people who love this story, and a lot of it is because that in real time you get to you get to put puzzle pieces together, knowing that huge chunks of it are missing on purpose.
Absolutely,
that is part of the game. Is that is that because of like as I said earlier, like the first person anonymity grants the opportunity to just let things that can't be left to speculation in a film narrative be speculated upon.
Yeah.
There are certain things you have to pick a side with. And, I think this is the best he could have gotten with this movie. I really do. I think Five Nights at Freddy's is nigh unadaptable. And
God, no.
we got I'm happy with what we got. I think I think that the groundwork they laid is going to make for better movies down the road. Truly. I think that when we get a little bit deeper into the woo-woo supernatural stuff and how it works, that getting like laying the groundwork I think is going to be the hardest part. And now it's been done. And I do think that this could be I think it could be a horror franchise that, people come to love. If I have one other like minor gripe, and again, I understand like for the story they needed to tell how it functioned. And I think we'll get it. I want more mask off William Afton. And I think that
the scenes in The Office were so good.
They were great. And I obviously love the whole dude, the fucking purple tie, and the fact that in the opening credits, like they tell you, and it's shit like that. I appreciate that his name flashes as Purple Guy is putting the mask on, and his name flashes purple. I think we'll get more of that as we go, and I hope we do. So
we have to.
I think we will. Boop.
Yes.
Where can the lovely people find you, my friend?
Don't look for me. I'm nowhere. I'm standing behind you in your closet every time you go to like look for your winter wear. Don't
whenever you start hearing a weird voice start saying it's me in your head.
Yeah, that's me. Don't worry, Cookie Cop has not taken hold again. It's just me. It's fine. But no, you can find me if you're the Twitter type, because I'm never gonna call it X. I'm sorry, Elon.
If Elon gets to dead name his kid, I get to dead name that fucking website.
Exactly. I'm Boopenheim, MEW. On the blue sky, I'm just Boopenheim. I'm just Boopenheim everywhere else too. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Nerd Herder always comes back.
It will eventually. I promise you. Maybe. We'll see.
I was promised an episode to gush about Qui-Gon Jinn, so you guys need to come back.
You will get it, my friend. I promise.
Oh, you muted.
Hang on. You let me on your show to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's. You're going to talk about Qui-Gon eventually.
I'm counting on it. You guys can find me at Twitter and Instagram at DarkJedi2552, and you can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, wherever you find podcasts, and on our website, www.thenerdacademypodcast.com, where you can get your hands on some Nerd Academy merch. I'm stretching it out because I can't find that fucking clip ever. I'm disappointed with myself. It always disappears on me. Ha ha! TeePublic.com. And if you're feeling generous, you can go ahead and donate to our Patreon page.
Give me $1.
Of our patrons, thank you to our $10 alumnus, Keandre Lloyd.
Colin Provolone. Sir.
So good.
Steal yourself, Colin! Steal yourself!
This is me stealing myself.
To Paco, aka Elix Jones.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. From the front lines of the information war, it's Alex Jones.
And to $10 patron Ray Clausen, who asks that you donate to Equality Texas and help keep queer kids safe in the Lone Star State. As I said at the beginning, guys, we're going to get these last few episodes of the Versus series out next week. Hopefully, at least a couple of them. And on Sunday of this week, expect another episode of Teen Up where I'll be sitting down with Alden Diaz to talk about that doozy of a Variety article, some of the book about the MCU, which I'm a few hours into. It's been very fascinating so far, and talk some Loki as well. So with all that said, thank you so very much for watching or listening. Class dismissed, and I always come back. Clip.
Stop! Move away from the cookie jar!